Okay, so how's you guys doing? My name is Dr. Austin Kwan, and we're here at Fabulous DeMoss Chiropractic. I'm excited to deliver this information to you guys. This is something that I think you guys have all seen in our world today in 2019. We're living in the technology era. All right, and I really want to talk about some of the things that people aren't necessarily talking about as far as how important your neck curve is. How many of us have ever heard about how important your neck curve is, or posture at some point in their life, how important your posture is, right? So most doctors don't really address posture. We're going to talk about some of the stats and some of the statistics on this, but it's really, really critical about how important your posture is for your overall health and well-being. So if there's one thing you could take away from today, it's just that truthfully your posture really does matter, and if we can add longevity to your nervous system and to your body as a whole, based on just doing some small structural things on a daily basis and just making sure you're even just aware of how your body is sitting in space and how your posture is, we can add years to your life, we can add quality to your life, and we're going to be able to hopefully, raise healthier children, and especially in an era where a lot of the stuff we're doing is taking away from your good posture. Okay, and we're going to talk about some of those things, and we'll also go over some solutions and how you can combat this tech neck. Okay, and some people say tech neck. We call it tech neck because there's a lot of different technology that people are sitting with their head over. Okay, so let's get into this real quick. How many of you guys have been to a dinner table, a dinner meeting? You're just sitting around the table with your family, and this is more or less the scene, right? Where we're at the dinner table, we could be out at lunch or dinner, with a big family thing, and most of us were at any point, maybe everybody is on their cell phone at any given time. Okay, so this is a very commonplace thing. If you walk out, you'll see a lot of families. We've lost connection with each other. All right, we've lost just sitting down, having dinner together, having conversations with each other. Okay, everything is right in front of us over our phone like this. All right, and we'll talk about, like I said, some of the repercussions of that. But even just not making eye contact with people, we talk about at my Welcome to Vegas workshop how important eye contact is, and just smiling at somebody, how life-changing that can be in an instant to somebody, just the way that you're connecting on an eye-to-eye basis, okay? The other thing that I wanted to mention is with memory, how many of us, you guys have probably noticed this in your lives, but how many of us it's one thing to age and your memory starts to go, but when you're not, I used to remember everybody's phone number, for example. Like, you always used to have a phone number that you remember. We'd always be, having to type it into a phone, or you'd have to be doing the little circle thing, the dial, right? So, but nobody remembers cell phone numbers anymore, right? Because they're all in a book. Even when it comes to memorizing facts, and especially for us in school that, I'm relatively a fresh chiropractic practitioner out of chiropractic school, but the demand to have to remember something long term just isn't there anymore, because you have access to Google on your cell phone. You can there's no reason for me to remember this because I'll just look it up, right? So that's something that, especially in my generation, I didn't even have an iPhone until I was 24 years old, and now I'm still trying to figure out, like I was trying to touch the TV earlier just to see if it worked like that. But the tech is so advanced now. I joke all the time at my practice with people, but I had an 8-week-old baby, 8-week-old baby in my practice, and I watched this little boy take his mom's cell phone, open an email, like press the to section, and like almost send an email to somebody on accident. Okay, this is an 8-week-old kid. All right, so it's just fascinating how well the brain adapts and how we are adapting to the technology that's available these days. Okay, but it's something that we, as a society, we've always known how important your neck is in life, right? So when you look at, it's kind of a out there thing, but think about the way that they execute people, right? So in England and in the European areas, they use the guillotine, right? In America, the noose was a popular thing. Samurai swords to the back of the head is a more Asian kind of thing, right? So everybody understands how important your neck is, right? They're not chopping off people's toes or fingers, right? If they were trying to end somebody's life, they go directly for the brainstem, right at the base of your skull. Okay, so if a major catastrophic trauma can do that and end your life, micro trauma to the brainstem and micro trauma and chronic repetitive overuse trauma to your neck can have really severe detrimental effects. All right, and we know that, especially, this is huge in the chiropractic field, but in 1976, as early as 1976, we've pointed to the fact that areas of abnormal position and movement of the spine impact your nervous system functioning. Okay, and we'll talk about this in a second, but your brain and your central nervous system ultimately connect and communicate every cell, organ, and tissue that you have, all 37 trillion of them, and ultimately are telling your brain what's going on. Your brain has to process that and give a proper response. But the spine matters in that process, and the spine is intimately connected with the brain, the spinal cord, and how your body is ultimately integrating these processes. Okay, so when your nervous system function is affected because your spine is poor and your posture is poor in your spine, there are going to be health consequences, okay? And we'll talk about some of those today. So just to refresh, some of you guys that are chiropractic patients here, you guys understand this already, but your brain right here is communicating through 26 bones in your spine through this highway of nervous system. Think of it like the 405 freeway, right? And everything should be flowing smoothly, and there's all these different connections, but they're connecting to all of your internal organs, as well as all the big muscles, ligaments, tendons, tissues, all of that stuff is communicating through this highway of nerves to your brain up your spinal cord, okay? And ultimately, each one of these bones in your spine is supposed to move a certain amount, and it's supposed to sit upright in a perfect, ideal posture so that you spring and that your body can bear the weight of gravity all day, okay? Now, again, what we talk about, what happens is that abnormal posture, if you're sitting forwards like this all the time, we're going to talk about the consequences of how this is going to stretch your spine, stretch your spinal cord potentially, put tension in areas where it's not supposed to be. Your body starts, it loses the ability to sense where it is in space properly. I think my laser's doing some crazy stuff right there. Okay, so if we talk about what an ideal normal neck curve looks like, and again, we're going to focus primarily on your neck today because of the tech neck issue, but posture overall in your spine is something that we really focus on here at my chiropractic office. So in a perfect world, you have 7 bones in your neck, and they should line up along a perfectly drawn ellipse line. So it's almost like the side of a circle, right, where the head should be tilted upwards. Okay, a certain amount, all right? Everybody, we always say, like, people walking around like this might be stuck up and arrogant and things like that. But truthfully, this is the way that your posture is supposed to be. Your head should be weight-bearing on top of your shoulders. Your shoulders should line up over your hips, okay? And we can get into a lot more detail on that. But your neck curve is so critical, and the biomechanics of how your neck is when it's in this ideal curve is the most ideal way where the bones are supposed to slide forwards, they're supposed to shift side to side, they're supposed to twist a certain amount, right? But as you start to drift your neck forwards, those kinematics start to change, and it's just like if you had your alignment off on your tires, you're going to wear those tires out, you're going to wear those joints out and those discs out in your spine faster if the biomechanics aren't proper, and a lot of that's going to be how your spine and how your posture is sitting, okay? If you guys want to try it real quick, I want all of you guys to just drift your head forwards as far as you can, and even tuck it to your chest a little bit, and try to just like move your neck side to side, okay? It probably doesn't move very good. Okay, as opposed to if you were neck up and tilting side to side, okay? So we'll talk about that. There should be a certain amount of motion you have here, but if your neck constantly is stuck like this and then bone spurs start to form and the body starts to try to fuse that together because it feels unstable, there's a lot of problems that can start to develop, okay? And this is what's happening, okay? These kids who have had a cell phone in their hand for their entire lives, basically, since 8 weeks old potentially, these kids, we're seeing an epidemic in these students whose their neck curve starts to grow forwards. It's literally starting to tilt forwards. And once it gets stuck like that and the body starts to grow and elongate in this posture, it's going to inhibit a lot of different processes that your body needs to be able to do, especially in a developmental phase of life. It's really critical that we can get these kids' posture upright, right? I remember, back in the day, the teacher would smack you over the head if you didn't sit up properly with good posture, right? There used to be contests with Miss Perfect posture, okay? So this is something new that we haven't necessarily ever seen before, where kids are bent over their cell phones for hours out of the day, okay? And we're going to talk about some of the statistics on that. But when we talk about common ways that people lose their neck curve, how do you lose this curve in your neck? That's probably the number one thing right now, is people sitting over technology for too long, sitting with this chin tuck position where they're focused, like laser focused. So you guys seen somebody watching a basketball game or playing a video game, and their head starts to it's like almost like they got to get their head into the TV to play better, okay? So that laser focus and trying to get your head closer is stretching and tensing all these things in your neck, okay, pulling. The other thing is that most commonly, whiplash trauma is huge, all right? They say an average American gets in a car accident once every 7 years, okay? So odds are at some point in your lives, you guys have been in a car accident or will be in a car accident. I pray that none of you guys have to deal with that at any point. But on average, Everybody is going to experience a car accident at some point in your life. We're going to talk about how important your neck curve is in protecting you from the effects of a whiplash trauma. All right? And the other thing is concussions, right? So if you get a head injury, the head injury almost always, when you have a concussion, it's going to cause a whiplash injury into your spine. They say about 98 G's of force can be put into your neck during a concussion. Okay? So that amount of force and that amount of tensile force into your spine and into your ligaments and all the structures that are in your spine can cause a lot of trauma and a lot of other things that are going to cascade down if we don't take care of it and correct that posture. So just some stats here. More than half of the average person's waking hours are spent sitting. Okay, so whether you're watching TV, working at a computer all day, commuting in your car, or doing other physically inactive things, right? All of these things, most people are in a seated position, right? So you sit in the car ride, you sit at work, then you sit at, on your car ride home, then you sit at the dinner table, you sit on the couch and watch TV, and then you go to bed, right? That's most people's lives, okay? So that's chronic sitting, that chronic inactivity is doing a huge toll on your posture, okay? The body was not designed to sit like that, right? The other thing with technology is almost 80% of the population between 18 and 44 have their cell phones on them almost every second of the day, all right? Every waking hour, with only 2 hours of the day spent without them on hand. Okay, so most people, especially young people, have their phone on it. It's like, it's literally a part of them. How many of you guys have experienced what's called phantom vibration syndrome? Where all of a sudden, you don't have your phone anywhere near you, but it feels like your pocket's buzzing or ringing, like you got a text message or something like that. You can literally feel your hand buzzing, or if you have like an iWatch or something like that, and your wrist starts vibrating. You guys have ever felt that before? The British Medical Journal in 2011 coined this term, phantom vibration syndrome, because this is something that's happening. You're actually getting a full-blown somatic response from the technology, and your brain's starting to sense it when it's not even there. Okay, so that's a whole nother story. But as far as what it's doing to your neck curve, the further forwards your neck goes, the more weight it's putting on it. So if you look here, when you're looking at here, let's say you're looking at your phone, your head might weigh between 10 and 20 pounds, right? But the more degrees forwards it goes, it increases significantly the weight of your head over your body. So as it gets to 15 degrees, you're almost at 27 pounds. As you go to 30 degrees, it's 40 pounds. And if you're all the way bent over like this, which we just showed in that picture, 60 pounds of body weight potentially are coming from your head just going straight over your body. Okay, imagine if you were holding a bowling ball like this, right? You could probably do this all day. But as soon as you start to do this with a bowling ball, your hand's not going to hold on to it for very long, right? This is the way that you're designed. And as we get out of that design, your body starts to deteriorate. These ligaments and tendons are going to rip, stretch, and tear eventually, okay? So the other key thing here is that extensive cell phone uses and postures are consistent with an age spine. So these spines, where the kids are looking like this, are starting to age tremendously faster. Let's just say it's like somebody very, very elderly spine would deteriorate, okay? So we need to reverse this process as much as we possibly can. Like I was saying, the further forward your head goes in degrees, we can see that your body's starting to put way too much pressure over your center of gravity. Now, if your head's like this, you're going to have to start to adapt different ways here. And then you try to exercise or weight lift or something like that, and just things start to go all out of whack, right? How many athletes have you seen even that start to have anterior neck posture and things like that? They're way more prone to getting injured and things like that, okay? So we got to make sure that we can get your head back on straight. We're going to show you some tips to do that. All right, but when you lose your your lordotic neck curve, okay, it's way more than just, ouch, my neck hurts. Like you guys have been over your phone for too long, or even been reading a book or something like that for too long, and you start to realize, oh, my neck hurts, or some people even start developing a headache or other different types of symptoms. Some people get dizzy, lightheaded, and things like that, okay? But what people aren't aware of is what your cervical lordosis, this neck curve, is designed to do in your body. It can cause things. When you lose this curve, it's correlated to things like bone inflammation. So what we call modic changes, where literally the bone is starting to inflame because it's starting to get irritated so much. Spinal joint arthritis and degenerative disc disease is huge, where we're overusing those discs, we're overusing those spinal joints, and in the wrong biomechanics, it's going to wear out way too fast, all right? And that obviously can cause a lot of pain. It's going to lock up, and eventually it starts to fuse together, and your body just kind of tries to hold on for dear life, and it's going to lay down calcium and things like that to keep it from moving. Changes in the position of the spinal cord. So when your head starts to drift forwards, the spinal cord that's sitting in that armor of bone that's protecting it in your neck is going to start to move forwards and start to rub up against the backs of the vertebrae a little bit. Okay, I don't have a spine model here, but Mr. Flex over here, you can see that as the head goes farther forwards, the spinal cord on the inside is going to start to rub up against the front. You're 18 times more likely to have chronic neck pain if you have a loss of cervical curve. Okay, so as your head starts to go further forwards, it correlates with an 18 times increase in the amount of chronic neck pain that these patients are having. All right, so obviously you guys could see, and you guys have probably felt the acute effects of doing this for too long. Imagine every single day people's heads are like this. All right. The other thing is decreased spirometry, so just your ability to breathe. Okay, so let's do that experiment again. All you guys trying to flex over like Sad Sally. All right. Try to take a big inhaled breath in, okay? And breathe all the way out. Okay, one more time, just for good measure, okay? But your neck's got to be all the way forwards, just like if you're looking at something on your phone, okay? All the way in, all the way out. All right, now stand up nice and straight, big and tall, chest out. Take a big breath in. All the way out. Okay, how much easier is it when you're upright, correct? So if you can imagine, if your neck curve is stuck chronically forwards, and you can't accomplish this upright posture, over time it's decreasing your breathing ability, right? It's decreasing your oxygen that your body is able to consume on a long-term basis, okay? And you can imagine your oxygen is the most important molecule that you get, all right? So super important that we think about that kind of stuff. Increased pain and inflammation in general. Pressure on the nervous system, again, affects the vagus nerve and how the vagus nerve influences inflammation in your body, but just overall pain and inflammation in your neck, all over your body. So people that got autoimmune conditions, people who have things like MS, Parkinson's disease, they've correlated that disease with a loss of neck curve. So it's really, really important we think about what your neck curve is actually doing for your overall health. Vascular abnormalities. So I'm going to show you guys, or I don't have the study in here, but we'll talk about a study here in a second. You lose blood flow to your brain as your neck starts to go forwards, right? The jugular artery, your carotid arteries and all these important arteries here are sending blood up to here, and you have to be able to get the blood back down. Blood flow and blood circulation decreases as your neck curve starts to go forwards, okay? And we know that in research, when you correct that curve, that the blood flow increases, okay? So super important that we think about that. We talked about central nervous system abnormalities, different types of tonic, like tic disorders, like we talked about Parkinson's and other types of brain disorders. Alzheimer's is something that they've just studied, that your cognitive function, your cognition, and the decay of your cognition is directly related to your posture and your neck curve. All right, so super important that we think about this stuff. Sexual function, okay? Sexual dysfunction can occur when your neck curve when you lose your neck curve, all right? And then I mentioned increased risk for poor outcomes following a whiplash trauma. So if your perfect neck biomechanics are supposed to be like this, and your head starts to drift forwards, and then on top of that you get a concussion or you whip your head back and forth, because of the abnormal biomechanical structure, now you're way more at risk to rip ligaments. You're way more at risk to injure your discs, to injure those tendons and things going on in your neck because of the abnormal alignment. Does this make sense? So what we want to look at when we're talking about this, and again, this isn't just chiropractic, you guys. These are articles by spinal surgeons, so neurosurgeons. When neurosurgeons are thinking about how to fuse somebody's spine when it's unstable, right? Can we all agree that we want to try to avoid spinal fusion surgery at all costs? Okay. This is obviously a very aggressive, invasive procedure. This person's neck probably does not move more than this. Okay. So really, really painful, and I'm sure they were in a lot more pain before the surgery. But the thing is that post-operative lordotic alignment of the cervical spine is a key factor for a successful treatment. So the spinal surgeons, when they're talking about how do we make this person hopefully as best as possible after this horribly invasive surgery, they fuse their neck in an ideal sagittal alignment, as close to an ideal neck curve as possible. All right? And the only other thing that has ever been researched to show that we can change the neck curve is spinal fusion surgery and chiropractic, CBP, which is the specific type of chiropractic that we practice here. Okay. The other thing is, like we talked about, health measure improvements in regional cervical alignment post-operative correlate with positive improved health-related quality of life. All right. So quality of life factors, again, is also a key thing. If you can't move your neck very far here, your stuff doesn't work, other things, quality of life is going to go down. All right. So when we talk about, most of you guys have had spinal x-rays here at the office. So your neck curve is something that we measure, and we've shown you at this point, and we've compared it to what a normal image should look like, right? So if this blue line is the normal curve, most people that I see have either a severe, very, very straight neck, or it's actually reversed and it's starting to go the other way, like we talked about. So it's not along that perfect side of a circle that we want to see. So when it gets super straight like that, again, it's putting a lot of pressure on the fronts of these structures. So this is a 24-year-old kid, okay? So his neck, he's been on a phone, he's a golfer, so he's been like this for a good period of his life. But just for 60 days of chiropractic care, we were able to get a lot more curve back into his neck. Okay, so almost a 22-degree change. All right, so this will last a lot longer in the long run. You're going to be able to have better myomechanics, like we said. He's going to be in better shape in the long run because we can keep that neck curve here. The neck's going to have better movement and motion. Right? Now, even if you have degeneration in your spine, so you've got bone spurs starting to grow, you've got disc degeneration, you've got spinal arthritis and things like that. You might even have spondylolisthesis or spondylosis where the bones are starting to slide forward or backwards. Okay? We can still make a lot of good change, and the biomechanics of your spine are going to get better if we can restore the curve in your spine. Okay? And again, we would much rather do this naturally. There was no spinal fusion surgery involved in either of these. All right? It's just basic, traction and a few other things I'm going to show you today. Okay? But it's so important. If we can save somebody's life, if we can improve their quality of life, if we can change the way that their pain and some of the other symptoms they're feeling are, just by changing their neck curve, it's going to be a huge thing for healthcare in the future. All right? Okay? So when we talk about how do you correct your neck curve, okay, so there's 3 things that specifically I do to make sure that we can really make change to that curve. The first and foremost, most important thing is segmentally making sure the bones in your neck move properly. Okay, and the only way to do that is with chiropractic adjustments. Making sure that I can evaluate the movement of the bones, which bones are moving, which ones aren't, and the ones that aren't moving, we move them. Okay, chiropractic is very simple in that. So here, this is my friend Sarah getting adjusted, but it's really, really key that we're specific to which bones we need to be moving and which ones we don't need to be moving. Some of them might be moving too much. Some of them may be stuck and keeping your neck curve stuck in the same place. Okay? So chiropractic adjustments are first and foremost. I think most of you guys in this room get those. All right? The second thing is specific spinal traction. And then we'll talk about the mirror image exercise in a second. Do we have a I don't know if I have a DENNEROLL in here. Oh, yes. Toss me that. Good catch, Quan. Okay, so this is a DENNEROLL. All right? It's a piece of foam, okay, but it's specially designed to restore the curve in your neck. Okay? So if you see here, this lady is super simple traction. You just lie on it on your back, okay? But the most important thing is that we're specific about where we put this thing, okay? So you could put it anywhere in your neck, and yeah, it might make your neck curve go backwards, but we want to be very specific about where that apex of your neck curve is, and the only way to do that is to measure it on an x-ray, all right? So what we do is we want to see if you have an abnormal neck curve, right, that's either going forwards or it's too straight, we need to find where that curve needs to go backwards again, and this pointy part of the DENNEROLL goes right there, and then you lay back on it. So if you're laying on your back like this, it's not like all of a sudden you lay on your back and your neck curve changes. Okay? But once we put the DENNEROLL under there, things start to change a lot faster. It starts to make mold. It molds your spine almost around the DENNEROLL. Those structures, the ligaments, the tendons start to mold. Okay, there's a few special laws of creep process that we want to make sure that your body is starting to mold around the DENNEROLL. Okay, add more curve to your spine. If I just turn these pictures sideways so that you guys can see. So you see how this guy's spine is going pretty straight. Okay, but when we put the DENNEROLL under it, it's much more of an ideal curvature here. Okay, so if we do this over and over and over and over again, okay, it's almost like wearing braces. You guys, how many of you guys wore braces at some point? Okay, so you can't just tighten your teeth all at once and expect them to move very well. Okay, so it's a constant process. It's an everyday kind of thing that we have to make sure you're doing to restructure and remodel your spine. Okay, so something we'll talk about. Some of you guys, I would say most of my patients here, you guys all are pretty diligent, or at least you should be pretty diligent about doing your DENNEROLL. Okay. So depending, like I was saying, depending on where that apex of your curve is going to tell me a lot about where I should be putting this device. Okay, so sometimes if your curve is really reversed, we're going to have to make sure it's much lower. Your head's going to hang off the back. Some people, it's more of a middle neck apex where you have to get it going backwards this way. And some people, it's all at the upper neck, and we've got to get their upper neck going backwards. Okay, but the only way, again, to know is if we take x-rays and measure them. Okay. So another thing that we do here is mirror image exercises. So once we traction it, then we want to make sure that we're exercising it properly. So we're going to go here, and basically you're going to put it like this, and you'll lean your head off the back of it. Now there's two things that we're working with here. One, this little device is going to pull your neck forwards while your muscles activate your head up and over the back of it, okay? And there's a law in your body called reciprocal inhibition. Okay? And some of you students have probably heard about it, but reciprocal inhibition basically is like when you kick a soccer ball. My quad has to contract maximally so that my foot actually goes forwards, but in order for me to accomplish that range of motion, my hamstring has to relax. Okay, so quad contracts, hamstring relaxes, and that's a way that you can get muscles to shut off. So that's what we want to do, is these muscles here that are really overactive because you're hunched over like this all day, okay? We need to get these ones to shut off, and we need to get these ones to turn on. So most literally, we activate the ones on the back and hopefully try to get these ones on the front to shut off as much as possible. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so this is, most of you guys that are my patients here, hopefully at some point we're going to get you on this kind of rehab. But it takes some time. First, it's important to me that segmentally your spine is moving properly, and then we can start doing the spinal remodeling part, right? Now, okay, so all of you guys, if you're taking notes, or this is a good spot. So just when you're using your cell phone, think about this. So ideally, you should be looking at your phone eye level, okay? And this goes for a computer screen, whatever you might be doing. If you're playing video games, watching TV, ideally you're looking at least eye level or up, all right? And you should, you don't want to have your elbow out like this. Try to keep it nice and close to your body so that it's ergonomically safe here. So chin up, elbow in, and then shoulders should be back and down. Okay, so you're nice and locked in like this. Okay, so this would be an ideal cell phone posture. Okay, again, there really is no ideal cell phone posture in my opinion, but this is better to make sure that we're at least being cognizant of your spinal curves and especially making sure your neck is not in this flex forward position chronically. Okay, so I know you guys have been here, like you'll see all these people walking around, it looks like they're taking selfies of each other. Okay, but they're just looking at their phone because that's how you should be looking at your phone. All right. Okay, now, when we can correct your neck curve, what this will do for you, they've studied it up to 20% improvement in your spinal cord transmission velocity. So they do these crazy sensory evoked potential studies where they put like electrodes, one in your spine and one in your arm. They see how fast the nerve impulse is actually traveling. Okay, so 20% improvement, which also means that there's a significant decrease when you lose that function. Okay, so again, if we can just make your neck curve better and your spinal cord starts transmitting better, you get better information faster to your body. Think about what that's going to do for you, reaction time-wise, just everything, okay? We talked about increased better breathing, decreased pain and inflammation. We talked about decreased risk for a bad outcome after a whiplash trauma. And then this really cool study that one of our colleagues did showed that when just by using that DENNEROLL, you can get almost a 227% increase in blood flow to your brain. Pretty quick, all right? So it's just one of those things. The spinal curve matters. And the more time you spend like this and the less time you spend like this, the worse outcomes you're going to have in the long run. Overall health outcomes, not just ouch, my neck hurts, but overall your whole body is going to be affected if your neck curve sucks. All right? So we talked about here, so if you have severe degeneration in your spine, the curve's starting to do this S thing, you are severe injury likely. If your curve is like that, you moderate injury starts to, as you go straighter, and then if you have an ideal neck curve, it's not like obviously this isn't going to protect you. If you get hit really, really hard, it's going to do some damage to your spine, but it's going to at least protect your spine a certain amount if it's in the right biomechanical structure. Okay. So other things here, I've just cut off a little bit. But the spine and posture affects and moderates every physiological functioning from breathing to nervous system function. And despite the considerable evidence that posture affects physiology and function, the significant influence of posture on health is not addressed by most physicians. So I'm probably the first doctor, hopefully you guys have good chiropractors out there, but I'm probably one of the first doctors that's ever told you this information about how important your neck curve is for your overall health. Is that true? Yeah? So when we talk about this, the doctors are missing a huge component of what you should be doing to take care of yourself on a daily basis, right? Most doctors, at least the doctors that I work with, don't want their patients to take more pills. They don't want to take more drugs. They don't want to get more vaccines. They don't want to do spinal surgeries, right? They don't want to do more of those things, okay? But the problem is that if normally I show this slide, but if your house was on fire, okay, you have to call the fire department to put your house out. You got to put the fire out somehow. They're going to come with their axes, their hoses, and everything. They're going to put the fire out at all costs, right? But the next day, when you're trying to rebuild your house back up, do you call the fire department to come rebuild your house? No, right? You have to call a contractor, a plumber, all these people. You have to have a team of people to rebuild your house, okay? So think of your body like your house. So medical doctors are in case of emergency. If you break your neck, okay, yes, I could see why fusing it together is going to be really important, okay? But most cases like that are not emergencies. If you get a gunshot wound, don't go see a chiropractor or an acupuncturist. You got to go to the hospital, right? But most cases are not an emergency. And when we continue to use emergency tools for daily problems, okay, there is no drug. You can take all the drugs, pills, potions, whatever you want. Nothing is going to fix someone's tech neck, right? Unless you take the cell phone out of their hands, right? And we can make a good argument that that cell phone is kind of like drugs, and it might be worse than drugs, all right? That's a whole other workshop that we'll do one day. But again, physicians don't address this particular part of health, is how important your spine is for your overall health. And no one's talking about it. That's why I like to do these kinds of workshops for the community and people, because people need to know about how important their spine is. That we know that people who have had the severest, severe disability, right? The poorest posture, people with the poorest posture showed this almost 400 times, or excuse me, 400% higher rated disability. So just you having poor posture, and again, when we talk about, you just saw this one, but when we talk about activities of daily living that you need to be able to do well into your old age, right? Eating, bathing, moving from one seat to another. Toileting is probably one of the most important ones. Dressing yourself and just walking around, being independent, right? Being independent is ultimately what we all strive for into our old age, right? Not being completely reliant on somebody to take care of them, right? That's something we all strive for. If we can limit that burden on healthcare providers, on nursing homes, all that kind of stuff, hospital workers, right? That's going to be a huge thing that we can, influence in our society, right? And be able to take care of our parents better, be able to take care of our grandparents better, right? But again, posture can dictate and is correlated directly to your amount of disability. And then this is like a lot more stuff, but I just want to point out this one here. Out of almost 300 participants, all measures of health status decreased when they had poor posture, and their solution was spinal surgery. So that was the only solution they gave these people. So as a chiropractor, it's a little frustrating because we don't want to just jump to spinal surgery all the time. Okay? If we can fix things by just restructuring your spine, making sure the bones are moving properly, getting some exercise in, getting your body stretched and moving differently, if we can get that done to heal your body in a more optimal way, let's do it. Like I think all of us in the room, we don't want to do more surgeries. We don't want to take more pills, you guys. Okay, so ultimately, as young people, you start off in a pretty good posture, and if we can maintain this for as long as possible, we can prevent this degeneration process that starts to occur, okay? So that you're not hunched over in your old age and having to like go around in a walker all the time, right? How many people, that's very common. What we see is people end up, they go further and further forwards, right? And then pretty soon they come all the way off their center of gravity, and now they need this, right? And pretty soon you're all the way 6 feet under, rolled low, you know? So that it's really important. We have to make sure that we can keep people in this extension position, okay? Now, I am guilty because I've been on a phone, I've been on a computer my entire life, I've sat in the classroom as a student for my entire career, basically. My posture is not ideal. But it's something that I work on every single day because it's important, and I know how important it is now. In fact, it's so important I became a chiropractor, okay? So it's something that you guys, I didn't even know chiropractic existed until I was 22, and now I do this for a living because of how important and how I've seen how important in our patients that the spine is. When you adjust somebody's spine, you can take the pressure off the nervous system, and your nervous system, because of the way that posture and your spine protect every physiological functioning you have, because of how we can move the spine and get it working better, I've seen amazing things happen to people where, they've gone to every doctor and nothing else worked. They've tried every pill, they've tried every surgery, they've done crazy laparoscopic procedures, they've done all kinds of stuff to try to get their problems fixed, and then they get a couple adjustments of the chiropractor, they get a couple exercises, and now their body's starting to work way better. It's amazing what the human body is able to do. Okay, and I usually have a slide, but the Harvard Medical School doctor talked about that the innate wisdom that's within your nervous system to heal your body is responsible for 90% of what your body can do to heal itself at any given time. Okay, and all physicians are responsible for telling their patients that. How many of you guys have really had a physician that told you your body is going to heal itself? We just have to play by the rules a little bit better. You got to stop eating so much crap. You got to exercise a little bit more. You got to stop. You got to detox yourself from some of the poisons that you've been exposed to, right? So this is where we're changing the healthcare paradigm. I'm a young doctor in this game, and the guys that are coming out of school are fantastic guys and girls. But it's so important that we change some of our old ways in a healthcare system where we continue to come in last place every year. Okay, we have the sickest kids. We have the sickest population in the world for industrialized nations. Okay, we have to make change, and it starts with you guys. If we can just, the only thing that you really have is your body. You're independent. You're in control of your body. You need to make sure that, one, we can take care of your posture, but two, everything else is falling into place properly. Okay? So ultimately, okay, we talked about the further forward your head goes, you don't want to end up like this guy. Okay? Your head might fall all the way off one day. It probably won't, but let's never get to that point. All right? All right, so if you're in the Orange County area, if you're in Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, Irvine, Huntington Beach, wherever you might be in the Orange County area, we'd love to take care of you here at DeMoss Chiropractic. If you are interested in more workshops that I've taught or that some of the other doctors here at the office have taught, check out the CalJam Network at caljamnetwork.org. All of the workshops are available there, and we'd love to see you get more information to help serve your communities better.